My mother didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She delivered the price of the plane ticket with the cold confidence of someone announcing a rule, not an opinion. The living room was buzzing with anticipation over my sister's engagement celebration in the Maldives. Travel guides lay scattered on the table, my siblings compared flight options, and laughter spilled into every corner like champagne. I sat among them, yet apart, exhausted from months of extra shifts spent reducing my mortgage. No one noticed. When my mother finally looked up and declared, "If you cannot afford it, stay behind," the atmosphere shifted. Silence flickered, then dissolved as though nothing had been said. In that moment, I understood my position in this family: useful when needed, disposable when inconvenient. I didn't feel broken. I felt clarity. Her words didn't exclude me from their trip. They gave birth to a journey of my own. The planning continued without hesitation. My siblings paraded glossy brochures like trophies, marveling at underwater restaurants and villas suspended above turquoise waters. My father boasted about an executive suite he had booked months ago, presenting the confirmation email as if it were an achievement. My sister excitedly described drone shots she intended to capture, already imagining how many followers her photos would attract. Throughout the frenzy, no one acknowledged my presence or wondered whether I wished to be included. They behaved as though financial comfort was an inheritance only they deserved. They forgot the late-night phone calls I answered, the rent I covered when they faltered, and the car repairs I paid without complaint. Their happiness wasn't cruel. Their entitlement was. I observed quietly, realizing they valued convenience over loyalty. Their laughter filled the house, but it failed to silence the truth forming inside me. I was no longer willing to fund their selective amnesia. That night, I opened my laptop, not to sulk, but to calculate. They mistook my silence for lack, unaware that discretion was my greatest investment. While they measured worth through vacations and designer labels, I measured it through retained clients and recurring contracts. 5 years earlier, I had launched a consulting firm specializing in regulatory compliance for mid-sized companies navigating digital infrastructure laws. It wasn't glamorous, but it was profitable. Each contract I secured had been reinvested, every cent tracked, every mistake recorded as experience. They didn't know the satisfaction of receiving quarterly payments without leaving home, nor the power of automated billing systems. The greatest irony? One of my most lucrative contracts came from the very airline that would carry them across the ocean. They saw me as financially inferior, yet the systems that guaranteed their trip were held together by my expertise. I didn't need their approval. My numbers spoke fluently. 48 hours later, my phone rang. The airline's operations manager sounded breathless, as though words themselves weighed too much. A compliance error had compromised their booking database, locking out thousands of reservations, including those tied to premium accounts. Every passing minute meant mounting losses, legal exposure, and irate travelers threatening lawsuits. Their in-house team had exhausted every protocol. My name surfaced because someone remembered my firm's efficiency. I didn't rush. I listened, requested system access, stated my emergency fee, and waited. Panic makes arrogance evaporate. They approved my terms without argument. Within an hour, I bypassed corrupted nodes, restored encryption layers, and stabilized the infrastructure. My dashboard showed a ripple of confirmed flights returning online. Power didn't roar. It whispered through clean code and flawless execution. At that moment, I realized I didn't just repair a system. I held temporary control over their entire travel schedule, including the one my family glorified. The morning of departure resembled a movie premiere. My family emerged from the house dressed as if paparazzi waited outside. Matching luggage rolled behind them, sunglasses hid entitlement, and their excitement was almost theatrical. My mother smirked when she saw me behind the wheel. She thanked me for driving them, then reminded me not to feel left out, as though emotional wounds required permission. I said nothing. 5 minutes after they entered the terminal, an announcement thundered through the speakers. All flights to the Maldives were suspended indefinitely. Confusion spread like smoke. My sister paced. My siblings argued. My father demanded explanations from staff, who had none. My mother stood frozen, stripped of the certainty she once wielded so casually. The realization crept into her eyes long before she admitted it. Money wasn't the only currency that mattered. Sometimes, the most expensive lesson isn't paid in dollars. It's paid in silence. My phone vibrated moments later. My father's voice trembled, not from fear, but from the humiliation of needing me. He asked whether I knew what was happening. I could have savored the irony. Instead, I spoke calmly and explained that restoring the system required a specialized intervention. Then I quoted my emergency rate. There was no negotiation, no sarcasm, none of the superiority that usually flavored his tone. He simply asked where to sign. In minutes, the contract was returned with his digital signature. The same hands that once dismissed my ambitions were now funding them. I initiated the protocol, placed the system into diagnostic mode, and began repairs. My mother hovered behind him at the airport, her expression collapsing under the weight of dependence. Pride had always been their compass. Now it was their cage. They wanted a trip. They received a revelation. The family member they underestimated controlled the exit door. When the system flickered back to life, flight schedules reappeared as though resurrected. Staff rushed to reissue boarding passes, passengers cheered, and relief washed through the terminal. My family hurried toward the gate, clutching upgraded boarding passes they hadn't earned. They assumed someone important had taken pity on them. They never imagined that the invisible son, the one deemed financially unworthy, had orchestrated the entire rescue. Their first-class cabins sparkled with champagne flutes and silk pillows, symbols of a privilege they believed was theirs by birthright. They celebrated victory, unaware that their comfort was financed through a contract they had already signed. Power didn't require applause. It required positioning. As the plane lifted off, I watched from the parking lot, not with bitterness, but clarity. They left thinking I'd been excluded. The truth was simpler. I finally understood the value of walking away from a table that never offered a seat. They returned tan, euphoric, and armed with stories of exotic dinners and private beaches. I listened politely during dinner, letting their pride inflate like a parade balloon. Once dessert arrived, I placed an unmarked envelope at the center of the table. My mother opened it, expecting another bill for home repairs or groceries, things I used to handle quietly. Instead, she found an invoice bearing my company's name and the total cost for rescuing their flight. The amount dwarfed the ticket price she once used to measure my worth. Her face drained, and a silence settled, heavier than any accusation. I didn't lecture, didn't raise my voice, didn't demand apologies. I simply said, I always had the means. I just stopped paying for places where respect wasn't served. The hierarchy they worshipped collapsed. They traveled the world, but I was the only one who came home with freedom.